So it's a conversation you've had with your kid once, twice, maybe 1,000 times before. They beg for a smartphone and you say no. Maybe don't give in just yet because there's new research supporting your decision. And my next guest wants you to let this research be your guide as you navigate technology in the home. Author and educator Andrea Davis is joining me with what to do when your kids won't stop begging for a smartphone or whatever piece of technology that might be that dangling carrot for them. Andrea, welcome to Studio 5. Thanks for chiming in on this.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke. I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate the relatability of the emotional beg. Like, sometimes parents get tired, and sometimes that begging does wear us down, I think, more than we'd like to admit. But point us to this recent study, this recent research.
Yes, so in January through April of this year, 2023, a group of researchers took 30,000 young adults, so ages 18 to 24, and they asked them, okay, how old were you when you got your first device? And then they asked them a series of questions related to their mental health. And they found that the older a person was when they got their first device, the better mental health they had consistently across the board.
Direct correlation. And this was any device or specifically a smartphone?
Yeah, it was any device.
Any device.
They were talking about smartphones and tablets. And of course, when we look at these studies, they always talk about, okay, correlation does not mean causation.
Sure.
And so what that's saying is that they are seeing this correlation, but there's a trend across many studies, not just this one, where they've really seen this decline in youth mental health and right when smartphones came onto the scene.
Andrea, what do you think is an appropriate age for our child to own a device? I know you study this, you're more steeped in the research and the data than the average parent. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's much older than what we're seeing and where the trends are going. When we gave our oldest a smartphone about 6 years ago when she was around age 12, and our family had this big cross-country move, it was kind of crazy. And we just saw this abandoned smartphone as a tool, like a way to stay in touch with her in this place where we didn't know anyone. But we quickly learned that it was too much too soon, even for the best of kids. This is a kid who cleaned her room without being asked. And we just realized that there are a couple of things that we really have to keep in mind. And I group them into two categories. One is digital dangers. So obviously there's just a lot of harmful content. And then looking at digital distractions. And we found that just the earlier we have a device like that, it really is robbing kids of their childhood and of meaningful connections with people face to face.
I love how you break it down in those two buckets, because I think a lot of times the energy of this conversation focuses on the digital dangers, meaning how can I lock it down? How can I keep predators out? How can I keep that device safe for my kid? It's really the digital distractions that this new study explored in depth. And I think that really should be at the heart of what parents are worried about and considering, right? And we talked about how hard it is to resist the trend. You've used the word trend a couple times. The trend is going this direction. You know, I get that. Every parent feels that pull. At the same time, I have to think it's even harder to dial it back. Like, once you put it out there, it's hard to rein it in.
It is, but I will say it's possible. So at that point, we went back to a brick phone, which was not fun for our middle schooler or for us, but I always tell parents, like, it's never too late to turn things around. And obviously there are a lot more options now. There are a lot of starter and kid safe phones that were not available 6 years ago. So that's helpful too.
No, I'm glad you punched that home, because I do think we have to remember who's in charge. And there's been this, social media shockwave at a couple of celebrities recently, Jennifer Garner and Kate Winslet, speaking out saying, just don't give it to them. And it feels like this little mind bomb, when really it's pointing to the parents' initial, control and responsibility. Like, just don't give it to them, or what I'm hearing you say, pull back if you have. Like, you do have the control in this situation. You have 4 things parents can do or say when that begging starts, and maybe they're pointing to their friends and friends' parents who are making different decisions than you. First, you say you have to ask about responsibility.
Exactly. So when we realized we had done this wrong, I asked myself, okay, how can we do this better? Because we have 5 kids. And I'm like, okay, we still have to do this 4 more times. So we sat our kids down. We asked them 2 questions. We said, what does it mean to be responsible? And what does it mean to be emotionally mature?
Did their answers
And
surprise you?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it was just like, okay, so you get up for school on your own, you do your homework without being asked. If you're emotionally mature, you're kind to your siblings, you don't throw a tantrum when things don't go your way. And we were like, yes. So we made this list with our kids. And then we said, and those are the things that a person needs to be able to do before they're ready for a phone. And our kids were like, oh,
Light bulb.
yes.
But how enlightening. They wrote the list. I mean, their answers were right on par. And now you have this tangible, I mean, loosely document, you know, that drives your parenting decisions and drives their investment in that decision as well. You say that children should know about the research. This shouldn't be something that just you or I talk about today and parents talk about behind closed bedroom doors. They should be part of that conversation too.
Exactly. So just telling your kids like a phone is a huge responsibility. And, you know, parents should be so grateful that we've made so much progress in the past really 5 to 6 years in understanding the impact of smartphones and technology. And so just telling our kids, you know, we found that developmentally it's better for your brain, it's better for your relationships, it's better for your academics, like all around. If we can delay this and also prepare together, we're going to have a better experience and closer relationships as a family too, which we can't forget.
When the begging hits in full force, as it does and as it will, you don't reach for no, you say not yet, which I get that. I can also see that, like, I don't know, I can see that bringing on more begging sometimes if you're being ambiguous about it. Give us some guidelines there.
Yeah, well, that's why this self-evaluation is so powerful. So we took those questions that you know we made with our kids and we turned it into a self-evaluation so parents can download that. And we pull that out when our kids start asking. We go through those questions, and the very last question says, is there a need? Like, do I really need this device? And so that's a great time to sit down and have a conversation instead of just saying no, saying, you know, we don't really need this yet. So let's delay and let's prepare. And I think that's where the power of the not yet comes in, is just saying, let's prepare together by having conversations about technology, by creating a family tech plan, doing these things that are going to help us prepare for that step, because technology is a great tool. And I think that's an important part of the conversation, is not just demonizing the tech, but like, it's a big responsibility. So let's prepare together.
The power of the not yet, let's prepare together. Andrea, wise words. You explain it so well, and I appreciate the positive spin to all of it as well, because technology is a tool when used right. We know that. We know that. Where can we find more from you, my friend?
Yes, so you can go to betterscreentime.com. In fact, you can download that self-evaluation. It's called Am I Ready? It's right on the homepage. Thousands of parents have used that and love that when their kids start begging for the phone. And you can also find us on Instagram at betterscreentime.
All right, thanks for being a parent coach in our back pocket. We appreciate it, Andrea.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.